one of the statistics that really stuck with me. In India, we have about 50 farmer suicides every single day. Look, the very simple mission is to impact the lives of 1 billion farmers with financial aid where we're able to reduce the farmer suicides.
Today's episode is all about waste. Our guest on the show today is Joel Michael. He is a circularity expert. Now, lots of us won't know what that is, so let me explain. Have you ever bought a pair of shoes called Adidas Parley, where they make those shoes from recycled waste from the sea? Well, that you might think is a good thing. But what then happens to those trainers when you finish with them?
What if that pair of shoes reaches the ocean again? Have you really solved anything? Think about it this way. Went from the water body back into the water body. Now it's harder to recycle because a plastic bottle is a lot easier to recycle than shoes. So you haven't really solved any problem. You just delayed it in a different shape and form.
And there's me sitting thinking I'm doing something good, but actually I'm not really making any difference at all.
Not at all.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Allsop & Allsop Private Office, Dubai's first ever homegrown private advisory for the ultra-luxury property market. Now, they're catering exclusively to high net worth individuals, ultra high net worth individuals, and family offices. They offer exceptional comprehensive advisory services with the utmost confidentiality and discretion. Bringing an elevated real estate experience that extends beyond property sales, the division is powered by the highest level of advisors in the Dubai property market, a select and dedicated team that brings unparalleled and comprehensive expertise to meet the needs of their elite clients. For a redefined era of luxury living in Dubai, schedule a consultation today for bespoke information and expert guidance. Joel, thank you so much for coming to join us on the show today.
Absolute pleasure.
So before we get started, I suppose we need to give some context to today's conversation. This word, circularity, right? This world that we live in where some people are completely oblivious as to the problems they cause by their everyday actions, yet some people seem to be on a march to try and save the world.
Right.
Where do you fit?
So there's two sides to this question. There's a professional side, and my professional side sees this problem where when the world is focused entirely on carbon emissions and planting trees and putting solar panels, there is this one element that we fail to focus on, which is the waste problem. And my professional side got me curious about that because we're putting all these solar panels out, we're putting all these electric cars out, and everyone's saying it's going to be renewable, it's going to be waste free. But where does that waste go? And from a professional standpoint, we wanted to see if each of this waste material could not just stop at recycling, but have a second life. And from a personal standpoint, I basically see this as the biggest opportunity that people have to come together. When you look at the climate narrative, everyone's talking about this being the world's biggest problem. You see forest fires, you see the narrative around turtles dying, and you see the narrative around the world is ending. But with circularity, I see this as an opportunity where people get to come together to solve the biggest problem beyond religion, beyond race, beyond politics, geography, as human beings, where we can solve the biggest global problem collectively as people.
Climate change is a term that's spoken about. There's arguments for and against it. Some people, Donald Trump particularly, saying it's a bit of a hoax, and other people saying it's a big problem. We start to see that manifesting itself in different ways around the world. And again, there are different opinions around this whole climate change thing.
Yeah.
But waste is something, when you think about it, we don't really address consciously.
Yeah.
Now I know my dad's a recycler.
That's
all
awesome.
right. So I know my dad has 3 bins at home. I know that he's busy recycling stuff in his home, and he's doing his bit because he thinks it's the right thing to do. But then I look at India, South America, China, places where poverty exists in such great numbers.
Yeah.
Where just eating
is the goal. Just drinking clean water is the goal, as opposed to try to do my bit for the planet, you know? And when you look at the numbers of people that live in those developing countries or third world countries or impoverished countries, then to me it's like, how do you ever overcome the problem unless you overcome the problem for them first?
Right. Wonderful question. So this is something that we stumbled upon in a journey last year. Okay. If you look at any climate catastrophe, okay, it usually affects exactly the people that you've just described. And subconsciously, these people, whether it's farmers or waste pickers, are the ones who subconsciously contribute the most towards climate impact. However, they are the ones on the receiving end of every climate catastrophe, whether it's a forest fire, whether it's a flood. You never hear of a billionaire losing his house in a flood, or going homeless for that matter. So how we found a balance is we realized if these guys are doing what it takes to make this climate impact, why is it that the unicorns are getting richer? Why is it that the corporates are getting richer without even a little bit trickling down to these people on the very ground level? So what we decided to do with circularity is we said, if we look at all this waste as a resource, let's assume it's agricultural waste, let's assume it's food waste or plastic waste or XYZ, and we just gave back a small percentage of that waste being reused to this respective community. So think of community waste and waste pickers. Think of agricultural waste and farmers. We bump up their income by about 16x. And this is a study that we did in India.
How?
We actually interviewed several banks in partnership with the central bank, and we looked at government subsidies that were being given out, and we looked at the average income over the last decade to these people and what they were earning. And the problem with the income is that it's not consistent. It's not stable. It's usually in cash over the table or under the table for that matter. And because of that, they fall under a much more problematic category, which is the unbanked category. When you're unbanked, you have no access to improve your livelihood with a loan or any kind of microfinancing. So we wanted to change that. And again, on that subject, one of the statistics that really stuck with me, I'm sure you're aware of this, in India, we have about 50 farmer suicides every single day.
50 farmer suicides?
Every single day.
Why?
So let me explain how the model works. Going back to no banking, no loans, no financial benefit, okay? These guys go to someone like a middle money lender and they say,
Loan shark.
A loan shark. What the loan shark does is says, give me your land or your tractor or the future yield as collateral. In exchange, here's the money I'm going to give you. Any guesses what the average interest rate per month is?
Per month? I don't know. 5%.
22% on average.
22% per month.
22% per month on average, which basically means this
264% a year plus compound. Let's pay 300% a year.
That's what you're looking at.
300% a year to borrow money?
To borrow money.
Okay.
So basically what you're looking at is, he's not even contemplating this, the farmer. He's just thinking, I get some money to be able to do something for my family, to better our lives. In exchange, he's in a system that's designed to never get out of debt. He's going to lose his land eventually. He's going to lose his tractor. If there is an unfortunate climate catastrophe or a flood or something along those lines and the crop doesn't yield, he doesn't have any means to repay that. So he loses one asset after the other. Eventually it reaches a point of suicide.
So he's left with nothing. He's devastated. He can't be a man anymore. He can't provide for his family anymore. So his only way out is to kill himself because of the shame.
Yes. And because they've seen it happen one after the other every single day, they think that's okay now. That's the way to escape this.
Why do we not hear about that? And why do you care?
Well, so, I know this is the point where probably I'm supposed to give you the groundbreaking teaser for this podcast episode. But the truth is, that it's because I'm selfish. And let me elaborate on that. Circularity, by far, is the most selfish thing I've ever done in my life. And I'll give you some context. For those who know me, they know that the most important thing in my world is family. And when I say that, I don't just speak of like blood relative family. I speak of people in my circle, loved ones that I consider family. And when I say family, when I say, I love you and your family to me, that is beyond, you can put my name as an emergency contact when you're booking your flight tickets. It's more along the lines of, if there's ever a day when you're in trouble and you need my kidney, literally a part of me, I will give that to you. And I'm of a generation where love and gratitude are the two things that have to be expressed. And I might seem old when I say this, but the lyrics of Ronan Keating, where it says, when you say it best when you say nothing at all, don't really apply, because the previous two lines are the smile on your face and the truth in your eyes, which describe the expression of love. So why I'm saying this to you is because my family are the least expressive people in the entire world. So it's fantastic when I go home and when I'm in person, I have the most amazing food put out for me. That's their expression of love. But when I'm away, it's something that I've always craved for. And I've looked for it in friendships, I've looked for it in relationships, I've looked for it in family. Then I found that love, that gratitude, that priceless feeling of being important and being appreciated and being meaningful in the work that I do in the eyes of these community people. These farmers, these waste pickers, these sweatshop workers, when they received that extra income and it changed their life and they were able to put their daughter through school, or they were able to buy one extra meal a day, or they were able to just buy medicines for their senior member in the family. That selfless thank you and that selfless blessing is my high and it's my why.
So the feeling that you get from doing the good that you do is the drug you're addicted to.
100%. I'll tell you. So I always say this, and I'm very blessed and very grateful to have found my calling. And the narrative around everything today is to find your passion.
Yeah.
And to chase your passion and to try and make a living from your passion.
Yeah.
I feel like I was blessed enough to find my calling and to make a living trying to pursue my calling. And the common element between calling and passion is that you get to do what you love and you're happy about it. But the difference is, when you speak of passion, it's about finding fulfillment in the happiness you get.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's your calling, it's about finding fulfillment in the happiness you give. And the latter is what I relate to. To basically recycle it and try and make money from selling scrap thereafter.
Scrap plastic.
Scrap plastic. And this plastic can be used to produce plastic bags or to be able to produce another plastic bottle or so on and so forth. But the trajectory shows China has said no to all waste from the US. Singapore is now saying no. Vietnam is now saying no. So one by one, people are realizing that they have to be self-sustaining. How do you create an economy? We currently live in a linear economy. A linear economy is what you see on a day-to-day. You buy, you use, and you dispose. Simple.
Yeah.
A circular economy is where you remove, it starts where the linear economy ends. You remove, you recycle, and you reuse. The extension of that goes to rethinking how you produce for it to be reused. Okay, so this is a circular economy. Now, there is another layer to it. And have you ever purchased a t-shirt or a shoe that says this was made from recycled plastic or sustainable material?
So I have Adidas Parlay.
Fantastic.
Which I'm really proud of those because they're made from waste from the sea. Yeah, plastic waste from the sea.
Brilliant. And what would you say is the average length that you use the shoe for?
I don't know, 2-3 years. I don't know. Let's say 3 years. I couldn't tell you. But yeah, say 3 years.
Let's assume it goes on till 5 years.
Okay.
What do you do after?
With what?
With the shoe.
What do you mean?
When you're done, it wears out, you're bored, it's out of fashion. What do you do?
I find somebody who might need to wear them more than me. I chuck them in the bin.
What if, here's a thought. What if that pair of shoes reaches the ocean again? Have you really solved anything? Has Adidas or Parley, with the best intention, really solved anything? Think about it this way. It went from the water body back into the water body. Now it's harder to recycle because a plastic bottle is a lot easier to recycle than shoes. So you haven't really solved any problem. You've just delayed it in a different shape and form.
Well, it's not a circular economy. It's a boomerang economy, isn't it? It starts in one place and ends in the same place.
Absolutely. With a lot of people making money in between.
And there's me sitting thinking I'm doing something good, but actually I'm not really making any difference at all.
Not at all. For the short run, yes, you are taking stuff out of the environment, but it ultimately is going to come back.
So how does a circular economy stop that?
So if you have an iPhone, you can trade in your old iPhone for a new one, right?
Yeah.
In a similar capacity, what if every product you owned could be traded back for a new product? And that product was on a system, blockchain being the fancy word, but a transparent system where you could just see that a product started as a bottle, became a shoe, then became maybe another shoe or a t-shirt, or became a carpet, or became something more permanent, which is construction material. That is a circular economy. Everything that is ever produced has to be produced to remain in the ecosystem, not single use. Does that make sense?
So my pair of sneakers become a hairbrush, become a vacuum cleaner, become a plastics in fabric, become a Mont Blanc pen, become something else, and that just ever goes on and on and on. So we're taking the plastic waste and it never becomes waste again.
100%.
Is that what you mean?
100%. That's a circular economy. What you described with the Parley shoes is one cycle. A true circular economy is an infinite loop.
So what responsibilities? I've seen this is terms I don't know really a lot about, but we've seen this term carbon credit.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've seen this, companies produce a lot of carbon emissions. So there's, a train, an aeroplane, a business, a manufacturing business produces these carbon emissions. And we know that the forests of the world and the oceans of the world are able to soak in carbon and essentially dispose of it naturally.
Yeah.
So there are companies out there that know they've got these carbon emissions and they're getting fines or they're getting tariffs or whatever it is put on their businesses because of that. And so they're now trying to buy so that they can offset their carbon usage against countries or businesses or places that have an abundance of carbon credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of understand that. From a business point of view, are companies becoming aware of the problem of not creating a circular structure?
Absolutely. So
give me an example of a company. It doesn't have to be a name of a company, but an industry where they've gone, this doesn't make sense. We want to do something about it. These are the steps that we are taking.
100%. So without naming the company, one of the largest e-commerce companies in India is someone we're working with. And they
Can we guess? And I'm joking.
And they produce 3 million cartons per month.
What's that?
3 million cartons, the boxes you get your package in.
Cartons
Every month. And that is very high budget allocated towards something that's an expense that could be written off or could be reduced. So what we say is, if the delivery guy just stayed for an extra 5 minutes and collected the carton and it was reused, you essentially don't need to produce new cartons by a major percentage. You reduce your cost and you get incentivized for actually recycling and reusing. So businesses now understand that it's not just a good to have, but it's also business unit economic sense. And as a consumer, if you say, I'm going to take my carton, I'm going to unbox it and give it back to the delivery guy, you're also incentivized. You're incentivized with reward points to get a discount on your next purchase. So everybody wins. So everybody is part of the circular economy loop.
When I was young, we used to have the milkman who would deliver our milk in glass bottles.
Oh, yeah.
When I was young, so it shows my age.
Mm.
And then your mum would wash the bottles out and she'd put them back on the front doorstep.
Yeah.
And he'd pick the bottles up and they'd be off and they'd be sterilised or whatever they need to be and they were used again.
Absolutely. We had it figured out. Even if you bought Pepsi or Coca-Cola, you had to leave a deposit. And then when you return the bottle, they'd return the deposit. This was not too long ago when I was young.
Yeah, when I was young. So I don't know why they were called minerals, but when I lived in Nigeria, they were called minerals. And minerals were like Coke and Fanta and Sprite and stuff like that. And they used to be glass bottles in crates.
Yeah.
And so the crate of Cokes or the crate of Fantas or whatever would arrive. You'd put them in the fridge, you'd drink them. Yeah. The bottles would get washed and go back into the crate and they'd be collected and swapped out.
Yes. In fact, in Germany, they still have reverse vending machines where you can they leave it for the homeless or the people who are on the streets, and you can actually give them bottles that they can go and put in the reverse vending machine and get cash.
Okay, yes, they can go and collect that. That's happened with aluminium cans as well. People have been collecting aluminium cans for many years as well. So those people that are going out and collecting that waste are doing something positive in a very small way for the environment. But to give us some context on the amount of waste a city would produce, is there something that we've got that can give us some kind of understanding? Because I think when the term landfill is spoken about, it's kind of, it goes to landfill. And you're just like, well, how big's that hole?
So to give you context, there's an average landfill is about anywhere between 500 to 1,500 tons of waste at any given point. Okay. That's the size of a 20-story building. Okay.
Right.
In India alone, we have 3,100 landfills that are only increasing every single day. And the opportunity with the circular economy, and the reason there's economy in the word is because it makes business sense. So the opportunity is when you look at waste as a resource, that's when the business model changes. Think of it this way. When you buy a bottle of shampoo, when you go to the store, they don't just pour the shampoo in your hand, right? They give you the whole thing. So you've technically paid for the packaging, the labeling, all of it. When you throw it in the bin and someone else is monetizing that, in an ideal world, you should get a kickback because you've paid for it. Someone else is making money off it. But we don't care because it's probably too little. But when you break that down to the marginalized communities and you take the whole ecosystem in place, let's not look to my mom. If my mom said, if I dispose all the plastic in a separate bag and I could get 20% off on all my groceries, she'd do it. Even if it were like an extra 5 minutes every day, she'd do it. Put the milk carton separately, put the plastic bottle separately, put the veggies and fruit cuts separately. If she just did something as simple as that and was incentivized to be a part of that ecosystem, that's the way to do it.
It's proof that it works because when we had the glass bottles, that's what used to happen.
Exactly.
If we took the glass bottles back, they would get, I think, 5 pence every bottle. And so you're saying you go to the grocery store, you buy everything, you then dispose of the waste the right way. The next time you go in the grocery store, you get a 20% discount.
Yes. Because everybody needs to be. And see, the thing is, the reason people go to
couponing,
yes,
in America, is a big thing.
It's a big thing.
And so people go out there and they put the coupons because they want the discounts. And so if you can enable people to be more responsible and you can reward them for being responsible, then it creates a reason to do it. Whereas the reason at the moment is you're messing with the environment.
Absolutely.
And it kind of ends there.
Absolutely. Every habit, even when you have kids, it's always something that you want to inculcate with a reward or an incentive. No one wakes up and decides, I'm going to go and trash the planet today. People want to do good. People are good. We want to believe so. But there's two hindrances that get in the way always of doing good in a continued way. For example, if you have to walk an extra 5-7 minutes to put the bottle in a recyclable bin as compared to dumping one right next to you, you might do that once, twice, thrice. But on a hot afternoon in Dubai, you're going to dump it here.
Yeah.
But if you're incentivized, which gives value to the inconvenience and there's a cost saving reward benefit, that's the way to inculcate this as a no-brainer activity.
Incentivize people to do the right thing, and then they will do the right thing because it's in their interest to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, talk to me about entrepreneurship in this space. I remember when I was very young, I worked in London in the city and I sold office equipment. That was my first proper selling job. So I sold these big photocopiers for big law firms and big banks and stuff like that. And there were 3 guys that left and they went to start up a company and they got into the compacting business. And so they were selling these big, because at the back of a big office building would be a skip.
Okay.
And the rubbish would go in the skip and the skip would be picked up, okay, at the end of every day or whatever it was. I'm no guru on this. I'm just taking it from my memory of, I'm 54 now, so it's 35 years ago.
Well, not too long.
But they had these compactors that they would sell to the bank and essentially the building, not the bank, the building would then have these machines where all of the rubbish would go in the compactors. The compactor would squeeze it all down into, a fraction of the size of it. And then so much more waste could be managed because of compacting.
Absolutely.
So the reason I tell this story is that the guys that I worked for that went off and did this, they made a lot of money selling these machines because they were arguing that they were doing something correct and right and positive at that time. So there's definitely opportunity as an entrepreneur, even from 35 years ago, there's opportunity that exists. So where do you see opportunity that's kind of partnered with being able to make money, okay? And it's not, there's a triangle here. Being able to make money, do the right thing for the environment, but also feel really good about doing it. As you mentioned, it was important to you before. So give me 1 or 2 examples if you've got any.
That's fantastic.
And everyone, make notes of this right now for your next career move as you step into the entrepreneurship world.
Awesome. Well, partner is the key word, and I'll tell you why. When you look at people in the carbon tech or the climate tech race, everyone's competing. And if you think about it, there are so few groups of climate change people that come together to support one another. There's groups for fintech, there's group for real estate, there's groups for like everything, but there's very few groups for climate change and sustainability. Think about it. And the reason is because people are selling 3 things. Either they're planting trees, or they're selling a carbon footprint calculator, or they're selling you consultancy services. And the model is structured to compete. But in a circular economy, no one can thrive alone. There are people who are producing waste. There are people who need to collect the waste. There are people who need to recycle the waste. There are people who need to have innovation around reusability of the waste. There are the blockchain guys who need to ensure traceability around all of this. There are the AI guys who need to ensure what's the best way to improve this. There's the fintech guys who have to figure out what's the best way to move money through all of this. And there's the social impact guys and the governance guys who are looking at how do we incentivize the broader community around all this. So the room and the scope for innovation in a circular world is tremendous because, like I started earlier, it's the one true opportunity to come together and work collectively. So the opportunity is from everything, from how a product is manufactured and designed. And I'll give you an example of an absolute wonderful conversation I had with a company in Singapore. And the company made adhesives, glue, for iPhones. And they, at their primary objective, were focused on being a circular economy company. And I could not understand it. I was like, you make adhesives, you made glue. Why does circular economy matter to you? And what he said blew my mind, because he said, the way something is assembled determines the way it's dismantled. So the way an iPhone would be stuck together determines the way it would be dismantled and recycled for reuse. And that's where people have circular economy in their DNA. So it goes to basically show that from the point of how something is manufactured to the point of removal, recycling, reuse, and so on and so forth, there's scope for innovation everywhere.
Wow. So basically doing the right thing and being entrepreneurial is as easy as doing anything and being entrepreneurial.
You can look at absolutely anything around you, anything that's tangible, a physical product, whether it's your iPhone or a plastic bottle or a tissue paper, is a product that's out in the world that someone needs to remove and recycle at some point. And if it's hard to recycle, then someone needs to innovate how it was manufactured to begin with.
You care about this a lot, and I don't think I've got to the bottom yet of why it matters so much to you. I know that you say selfishly it makes me feel good, but for me, I help these children from Bangladesh that I help, as you know. I made this documentary on human trafficking because I feel their pain.
Right.
And because I feel their pain, I want to do the right thing, or as best as I can do the right thing to help and just take their pain away a little bit.
Right.
When did you, or how did you become like really emotionally connected to this? Because as we look through your LinkedIn profile, you literally are Mr. Environment, ESG, circularity. You go, and it just goes on and on and on and on. Climate this and all this kind of stuff. These wonderful the projects you've worked on and job titles that you've had along the way, where you are definitely high on the drug of doing the right thing. But I want to know why it matters so much to you.
Well, let me give you two instances. So I grew up in India. And if you've watched the movie Slumdog Millionaire.
Yes.
Okay, so you understand how the whole system works, where you have people asking for money. I don't want to use the word begging, but asking for money at traffic signals. So every time we went...
Why don't I want to use begging?
It kind of seems demeaning in many ways. Who's to say that they... Begging has now become like a taboo word because people are they feel entitled in some cases. There was this article about a guy who has been begging as a career, and he drives a Mercedes in Bombay, and he parks his Mercedes every day and goes to the traffic signal and begs because it's tax-free, and he just, doesn't have to answer anybody, and he works flexible hours. So when I say asking for money, it's because they genuinely need it.
We have them in London. They drive better cars than the people that are giving them money. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I always felt that my part was to give and not question whether it was given to be used for the right reasons or not. Like the movie portrays this mafia running this racket, and they're just there collecting the money to give it to some guy or they're going to buy. And my mother always had a different perspective, and she said, don't give them money. You're just encouraging them not to work or not to do the right thing, or you're encouraging this racket of this mafia. And I never knew which was right. Okay. So I always wondered if I didn't give, I felt really terrible at that point. At the end of the day, if I bought something and I said, maybe that was genuine, maybe that was real. And if we gave it, we also would wonder, what if that person could actually go out there and do something else and earn a living instead? So when we're giving now, we're giving in a way where I feel we have solved that problem. And we did this with the central bank in India, and we've given something which is something like a digital currency, but it's programmed. And the reason I say this is because this money now is like let's assume CSR. So people think that now when they go to the traffic and they want to give biscuits, or they want to give food, or they want to give a blanket. And a lot of people think that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. But if you were to put out on a table every single thing that you think this person needs, can you truly tell me the guy in the north of India would pick the exact same thing as the guy in the south of Africa?
Absolutely not.
Can you also truly tell me that the guy would pick the exact same thing in January as he'd pick in July?
No.
All we're saying is, what if this currency worked as a food coupon for a broader network where everything you thought this person should have is laid out on a table, but you gave them the decision to pick what they wanted when they wanted?
But that's a solution you're providing. I get that. You're avoiding the emotional question I need to ask. Why? I get it. There's entrepreneurial ideas you've got. There's entrepreneurial strategies you're deploying. There's smart ways of trying to make the world a better place. I get that. And I can see that you're interested in that.
Yeah.
But I believe that people that are watching you right now and listening to you in their car on their way to work this morning, on their way home from work, they want to know why you care. Why do you care?
I care because giving these people the right, think of it like a universal basic income. The universal basic opportunity is something that I feel everybody should have. And that's something I personally resonate with. I think the right to have the opportunity to learn is something that everybody should have. And when I graduated and I wanted to pursue game design back in the day, and I couldn't do it because we weren't financially in a place where my father could support that. So I picked a different pathway and I came to Dubai. And I came here with a backpack and sort of did the Dubai journey, which, isn't very glorious to begin with. You do the sharing and you do the bed spaces and you do the hustling and you do all of that. And there's a lot of nights where you go to bed hungry. And there's a lot of nights where you wish that someone could have given you an opportunity. And I just feel like, anyway, like I'm an older sibling. So, and I'm sure as a father, you relate. You try to do for a loved one what you didn't get. And you want to be able to create that for someone else. So my reasoning is if I'm in some way able to create an environment or an opportunity for people that perhaps I didn't get, that gives me fulfillment and that gives me my why.
So I want to talk to you about a couple of things now. First of all, I want to try and get an understanding of practical steps that business owners can really implement within their business. And I think we need to talk about that because a lot of people won't know where to start, and they'll hear this kind of stuff. And if they leave this podcast and go, yeah, or I'll get around to something, I don't think that really helps.
Yeah.
But also I want to talk about what you've been working on with 1 billion farmers, this mission that you have. Now, you spoke earlier about farmers borrowing money.
Yeah.
But from loan sharks, outrageous rates of interest, which we spoke about, almost 300% interest.
Yeah.
Which leads them down a path that basically ended up with no tractor, no land, no life, no reason for living anymore, and then taking their own lives.
Yes.
Just remind me of how many per day do this in
50. 50 is the official number published. Unofficially, it goes into 3 digits.
So 50 farmers per day in India are taking their own life because of this, which is horrific. What is your mission around this?
Look, the very simple mission is to impact the lives of 1 billion farmers with financial aid where we're able to reduce the farmer suicides.
How do we give them financial aid?
So, to be able to get any financial aid, whether that's a credit card, an educational loan, a personal loan, you need a credit score. A credit score is created with 2 basic documents. One is your proof of income, which is in the corporate world a salary certificate. One's your proof of expense, which is your bank statements. Everybody applies for any loan giving these 2 respective documents. These guys don't have it because they don't have a bank account. What we're doing is, because our waste recycling contracts are 5 and 10 years, we are paying this percentage, 20% of all the revenues to these respective individuals on a monthly basis as a second source of income, consistent in the form of this central bank digital currency. In doing so, we can guarantee that a farmer will receive money for a minimum of 36 months. We can guarantee the amount, we can guarantee the time. In doing so, I create both requirements. I'm the proof of income. Because it's a programmable CBDC on the blockchain, I know exactly where it's being spent. So basically, the money that we're giving them, the money, like I said earlier, works as a food coupon.
Yeah.
But in a broader network. So it will only work at merchants that we've authorized, outlets that we've authorized in our ecosystem. Merchants that sell food, shelter, clothing, education, insurance, healthcare, fertilizer, transportation. Because of this ecosystem, we know exactly the money that's going in, proof of income. We know exactly where the money is being spent, proof of expense. With this data, we have a farmer credit rating, which we can go to any bank and say, would you like to give them a loan? The second thing that we do is traditional model
At a low interest rate.
at a no interest rate, at a flat fee.
Whoa.
The entire banking system is targeting the 29-30% of the population of the country. The 70% are unbanked. We're saying, do what you're doing. What if you get a flat fee of $100 from one person per year? That's incredible. That surpasses all this revenue collectively.
What, like $3?
Exactly.
You get $3 off of 70% of the unbanked people in India. So people that don't, so unbanked means people that don't have bank
Don't have a bank account.
So just remind me again, 70% of the population don't have a bank account.
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying to the banks, use our system.
Mhm.
We will bring you customers
Yes.
that you wouldn't normally have because they don't bank anywhere.
Yes.
They will become clients of yours.
Yes.
Instead of charging interest, we'll charge them a flat fee,
Mhm.
let's say on $100, $3,
Yes.
as an example,
Mhm.
once off,
Mhm.
but they would get that for hundreds of thousands of accounts.
Yes. Collateral free because we stand as the guarantor.
You give the guarantee on the loan, so they're not taking any risk. The bank isn't taking any risk.
Any risk.
The person that benefits is the farmer, so he can use the money to do what he wanted to do in the first place, which was try and create a better future for himself and his family.
Yes.
How do you win?
So we win because it's firstly, where I truly believe in running a business that's profit from good and profit for good. It's the only way to scale and sustain, not as a not-for-profit in this ecosystem. A small percentage of the transaction with the merchant, like a UPI, comes to circularity.
Okay, so like if I were using a Visa card, I have to pay 2% to Visa. So is it something like that?
It's like that. A small percentage of that comes to us, and a small percentage of the processing fee that the bank charges also comes to us.
And so who is paying for that? Ultimately, the farmer.
It will go from, yes, a small percentage of that.
So
yes.
a small percentage. Ultimately, the farmer pays. He pays you. He pays the bank indirectly.
Indirectly.
There's a payment that's made. So ultimately, the farmer pays, but it is substantially cheaper, almost unrecognizably cheaper by compared to the alternative he has this very moment today.
100%. It's nowhere close, nowhere remotely close. And for the financial institutions, what we're also saying is the current model works where if you take a loan, you're getting paid, and then you have to pay a monthly installment to the bank. What we're telling the financial institutions are, we'll deduct at source. What that means is if I'm paying him $100 every month and he has to pay you a monthly installment of $50, we'll deduct at source and pay him $50 only and pay you $50. So the question of default doesn't exist. So you're secure, he's secure, and we're facilitating something that could ultimately eliminate the need to contemplate suicide.
That sounds phenomenal. But how realistic is it?
Well, we did a use case of 1,500 farmers. So 1,500 farmers with the Central Bank of India have received monies generated from waste. And we've been able to understand where they want to use the money. So money has been used to buy food, money has been used to buy medicine, to commute. And we took it a step forward where we wanted to ultimately solve the loan problem. So I always give this example of a friend of mine who essentially owned a house, wanted to build more on top, a first floor. So he applied for a housing loan, got about $100,000. The moment he got it, spent about $60,000 on a sports car. And that's a financially literate individual. So the bank can't say anything. They can do the due diligence till the money is disbursed.
Yeah.
If he can do something like that, imagine a farmer or a waste picker who has never seen money like this, has no financial education. They could be tempted to go buy a lottery ticket. So remember the programmability where I said the money could be used only at outlets to do with food, shelter, clothing, education, insurance. The loans will be programmed in a similar way. If he takes an agricultural loan, the loan will work only at agricultural outlets in a 5-kilometer radius. If he takes an educational loan, the loan money will work only at the 5 schools in a 10-kilometer radius. So in a way, he can't misuse the money. The money is used exactly for the purpose it was given, which again de-risks the bank and ensures proper utility of the cash flow.
Wow. It's genius, but it also seems so bloody obvious. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's great, but it just like, why was somebody not thinking about this before?
I think the beauty is in how simple it is. And we were so fortunate that we have the central bank of the country, who is our biggest partner and supporter. We have 6 other banks in the country who want to be able to disperse these loans, disperse these financial benefits. There are 118 countries worldwide looking for the ideal case study on a central bank digital currency. And we've just done the world's largest with India.
Interesting. Okay. I'm here in the UAE, I own a business. So I own businesses here along with lots of other people that were listening now. They want to do the right thing. They want to be responsible. They're hearing this conversation and they're like, wow, Joel, that's some great stuff you're doing. They can leave this video or audio, whichever they're consuming it in, they could leave this and go, yeah, that was interesting. And in 10 minutes time, not even be concerned about their own situation or think it's all right for them. So before we continue, for those of you that are those people that are going to move on and not pay attention to what you're doing after this, then I urge you just to stop and have a think. Because there are things that you can do, and Joel's going to teach us right now what those things are. But there's things that you can do to make a difference. He's making a massive difference, but if we all made a small difference, there could be some great mileage that we gain from it. So let's say I own a non-manufacturing company.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not into huge emissions.
Right.
Okay, but I've got 100 staff in my office. We go to work every day. We've got a kitchen. We've got our business there. We deal with various amounts of waste from all types of officey type stuff because that would be pretty normal. We go to work every day in our cars and we produce our emissions and a group of people turn up. As the CEO, wanting to do the right thing, what kind of tips, tricks, and simple strategies can you give me to think about how I can focus on being more circular in what I do?
Fantastic. Let me speak in a language people are already aware of. So people already know that they have carbon emissions and they want to go carbon neutral.
Yeah.
There's 2 ways to doing this. One, they understand which areas are the highest carbon emitting. For example, if 60% of the staff comes in fossil fuel cars, then they try to create opportunities for public transportation. They try to create opportunities to have a company fleet which is electric. If they are looking at data centers, then they look at having renewably powered data centers. So there's one approach which is to reduce. Beyond a certain point, you cannot reduce. The business has to sustain, and everybody understands that. That's when they go on to offsetting, where they buy credits from a company that's planting trees, that's putting solar farms, the people that are balancing what you're putting out. In a similar way, think waste. Irrespective of what you're doing, whether it's stationery, whether it's food waste, whether it's kitchen waste, cups, utensils, whatever it might be, you're putting out waste at some point. The first way is to just look at it and say, can I reduce some of the consumption? Can I reduce some of the waste that we are putting out? Can we optimize the amount of food in the cafeteria? Can we optimize plastic cups or paper cups into reusable bottles, aluminum? Beyond a certain point, you're going to run at a ceiling, and then you're not going to be able to reduce thereafter because you have to also care about employee benefits and employee welfare. After that, you look at it as an offset. So you look at it saying, on average, we did a study, on average, in America and the Middle East, a person can offset all their waste for as low as 5 dirhams a month in the Middle East and for about $5 in the US. And what this means is they will pay this for a circularity credit, like a carbon credit, which funds waste pickers like tree planters to remove that waste and ensure it is recycled for reuse. So it's like an offset mechanism. That's the easiest way someone can participate.
Okay, so what's the practical steps of getting involved in that? How do I actually do that? Where do I go?
Yeah. Go to circularityglobal.com. That's the website. And we've got one page that lists on tips for you to be able to reduce your waste in an office environment, reduce your waste at home. And once you're done with that, if you just want to subscribe and say per employee or for myself, if I want to do 5 dirhams per person, you just subscribe. And we will give you complete transparency on where your 5 dirhams is gone, which waste picker benefited, where the waste was removed from, and what actually that waste was transformed into.
Okay. Last question. I've heard this term greenwashing. Okay, it seems to me like it's a lot of people saying really, really good things. I'm going to do these wonderful things and I'm going to focus on this really important stuff.
Yeah.
Yet they talk about it, they make token gesture commitments to it, but never actually do it. So can you explain what greenwashing actually is and why it might frustrate you or other people like you?
Greenwashing is a better word, a more sophisticated word for scam, in short.
Okay.
And some people do it completely aware. Some people do it just because they have a lack of information.
Give me an example of one.
Adidas Pale. You didn't know, but essentially that is borderline greenwashing, where you're buying stuff with a complete lack of awareness of, one, what were the carbon emissions in recycling the plastic bottle to the shoe? And where is the shoe going to end thereafter? Complete lack of awareness, not your fault. But
So I'm greenwashing or Adidas are greenwashing?
both. Because if they're unaware as a business, they are greenwashing, but you're fostering and facilitating that because you're the consumer who's providing financial aid to continue doing that. That gives us the second example where probably out of just a business approach, people are greenwashing. The most simple basic approach is where people have claimed carbon credits for planting trees in an area that would naturally grow trees with rainfall and natural soil habitat, etc. So it's a term called additionality, which simply means unless there is added value, where if you're going and making an effort to plant in an area that wouldn't automatically be sprouting trees, there is no additionality.
So if you go to an area where they wouldn't normally sprout trees, there is additionality. So if you go to an area where they're going to grow trees anyway, so woodland and forests and stuff like that in Scandinavia or in where they're just going to grow trees, whatever, you go in and plant 1,000 trees.
Unless you're planting a certain type of tree which is going to take extra carbon.
Okay.
Fair enough. But there's people who've claimed credits on saving the forest when the forest was never under threat of deforestation to begin with. That's greenwashing.
Got it.
In a circular economy world, let's go back to the farmer example. So the farmer has agricultural waste. There's two options he's got. He's got an option to pay someone to take the waste away, which he doesn't want to do because he doesn't have the money to do it. So he burns it. Burning has emissions. So when I say I'm going to take that waste and I'm going to produce fertilizer, compost, ethanol, from a PR narrative, it sounds fantastic. But if the total emissions in me collecting that in a truck, driving it 50 miles, that has emission. In the factory that's converting and recycling that has emissions. Trucking it back to the buyer of the biofuel, if all those emissions are higher than what would have just come from him burning it, that's greenwashing.
Okay, so greenwashing is in some respects very known, in some respects unknown completely.
Yes.
And if you're naive to it or you don't know that you're greenwashing, but you're trying to do your best, arguably the fact that you're trying is a positive step.
Yes. But
for people like you, it's not.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you're using something that's made out of recycled material, it's probably worthwhile to question, how was this recycled? Because sometimes you're just paying extra for someone to add a new brand line or a new product line, whereas actually the environmental impact has been worse. that's greenwashing. So unless there's added value, it's greenwashing.
Have you enjoyed being on the show today?
I loved the show.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. Joel, thank you for coming on the show today. It's been great learning about all of these things. And I think a lot of the time people are politely naive and somewhat ignorant to what's going on. And it's only conversations like this that will teach people more.
Yeah.
And as this whole world of circularity grows, maybe you can come back and join us in the future and share more of your latest insights as to what's going on.
100%. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.